It's the weekly 30/30 trading list on the ASX. We're looking at the top 30 momentum companies on the ASX over the last quarter. And then we also have a look at the best performing companies in the last week, those that have had the best improvement in momentum in this week alone. They're the launchpad companies, and that's where we've seen a lot of interest this week. Gary Glover's been through the two lists, pulled out the best charts, and is going to walk us through them. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, Chris. Great.
You've been through the list. Just off air, you were saying it's an interesting list and it's caught your eye and you're looking at it a little bit differently this week. So what's different this week and what are you looking for in the markets now?
Yeah, so when the markets had a pullback and had a period of weakness, and what I consider to be quite a deep pullback, and feels like we're getting close to a transition point potentially here for the market. Then we need to be really, it's really important here to be looking at which stocks are holding up the best here, which stocks are really sort of showing some sort of strength here. As we know in the past there, we look back to that March low and even the October low, the stocks that basically held up the best there, that were basically maybe making high lows, showing a bit of relative strength there. They're the ones that came out of that move there. So I mean, stocks like 360, I think CUV out of the first low, maybe up the second low. Just a lot of those stocks were showing relative strength at the time. And those are the stocks that came out really, really strong here. So really important to be looking at the list here, the stocks, the sectors, which sectors are really holding out the best here, because these are the ones that are going to, if we're coming out of a low here, I think, like I'm just following all the pros this week in the US, they've all sort of, scaled back. They're all sitting a lot of cash here, but they're all going for the list there, saying, okay, what sectors, what stocks, which group are sort of holding out the best here. They're all ready to pounce on those. Yeah, so that's what they're looking at. So those are the type of things, if we want to take our trading to the next level, that's what we're going to be looking at as well. So really important to be looking at stocks that are sort of strong here, holding up, because they're the ones that are going to power here. I mean, I just did exercise, I was kind of reviewing some old trades and stuff there, and also the year. Here's a stat for you, Chris. I noticed that like last year, 12 out of my 52 weeks was sort of where I made most of the money. So really only 23%. And I can tell you those 12 weeks, so the 23% of the year, those up weeks accounted for 173% of my end of the year profit.
Oh my goodness. So where did that other 73% come from?
So yeah, you see how down weeks and up weeks are, some small ones between there, and obviously you get churn in the other periods, so you're giving away, small ones there, but you get your big moves there. You get, well, I think in the first 4 weeks of the year, I made something like 40% of the yearly profit just in the 4 weeks. So just, so this is the thing, so that the thing for me, it puts the trading in perspective here. It's been a churn here. This quarter has been probably the toughest quarter for the last 2.5 years that I've seen. And it's a churn. It's not really making any money here. The key there is to not lose too much, is to have a pretty small drawdown when the market's tough here. Because when you get the turn and all of a sudden just say we pop off the lows here, we've gone back to retest 6,900, made a new low. If the market turns here and goes for a bit of an end-of-year run, it's potentially where we might make all the money for the year, or we might make half of our money for the year just in the next 4 to 6 weeks, maybe. So that's why as a trader, we don't know what's around the corner. We just need to, when the market does pull back, this is when we need to be at the top of our game right now. So we really need to be looking hard on our toes, screening, looking for the stocks. This is why these reports you're putting out, this is the most important period to be looking at them after the market's had a pullback, because we're looking for the next leaders, looking for the next sort of group to punch through. So, that's why it's super interesting here. This is really when, the good traders will get their head down and they'll be reviewing trades, they'll be going through charts. I mean, I started to go through just look at who performed well last week. The bank surprisingly showed a bit of strength there, Chris, which we sort of know that when you come out of a low, the first stocks that tend to move is usually your money goes to the big caps with a safety first. So, might be stocks like, the big four banks, maybe like CSLs, Woolies, Coles, I don't know, they always go to that sort of same top 20 first, and then it starts to filter through. So pretty interesting to see that the banks actually held up pretty well this week, and is showing a bit of relative strength. So that's a good sign for maybe a market bottom here as well. So, and then some other sort of stocks, other sectors sort of showing some strength as well. So even like retailers was number 8, which I thought was sort of surprising because I thought they were a bit weak, but they're not as weak as everything else. So that's sort of interesting as well. So yeah, it's just a really important time here. This is the time to do extra work, get positioned there, because the next potentially 4 to 6 or 8 weeks here, that might pay for might result in half of our profit for the whole year. So this is why it's really important. So let's go for a list there. So
the quarterly momentum, we'll have a look at those, which are probably going to be stronger performers. But
yeah, so I saw this Zenith Minerals is the first one I saw there. Just look, I like this to the short-term period just because they had a nice little volume there. Broke a swing high here, so it's sort of got itself out of this downtrend, going above the 50, pull back to the 50 and a bit of volume coming in. It's a little small, but just love this little tight little pullback here. Tight consolidation, a bit like, reminds me of deep yellow, sort of that little consolidation before it popped. And some good volume there. It's a little small, but not a bad little signal there. DUB is another sort of small one there. But a little bit of a VCP here, Chris, still tight price action, still in a bit of a downtrend, so that's the negative, but definitely starting to see a bit of volume coming in here. So starting to see size of break it, probably a little small, but I prefer to be looking for some of the bigger ones, but doesn't look the worst there as well. SM1, had a nice little move here actually out of this low. There's some okay volume through here. And potential false break then. If you look at the weekly there, that's actually pretty interesting there because it's been pretty mean downtrend here. Some okay sort of volume here off this last bounce, but then it's come back to retest the low here. Just watching for a possible false break here, but again, probably too small for me. I'm probably looking for maybe some of the leaders there, but some of these smaller ones are actually looking okay there. So CYL I thought was really interesting here. This is like been a pretty nasty downtrend here, but some big volume, almost exhausted into the low. Big volume rise here, bit of a pullback there. Just notice actually this is like catalyst metals there. So it looks like there's been like a new sort of project sort of rolled in there. So it's like a gold producer. I looked at basically who's on that board. It's kind of like a new, I guess it's like kind of like a backdoor type of arrangement there. So obviously some assets rolled in there, some new, they've got an approval there. So just thought it was pretty interesting there. Look, probably a bit heavy on the volume side here. Probably like to see the lighter volume, but just a bit of a change of character in the stock here. So I circled that one there. I thought, okay, that's interesting there. And just when I looked up the company, I thought, wow, that does look like a pretty sort of smaller sort of cap there, some pretty good board there. So and just some recent approvals there. So you got a few catalysts there potentially for a bit of a move. LDX, Lumos Diagnostics. Thought this is pretty interesting here because this is obviously had the pop, big volume, had the retreat, had the next leg up there, so okay volume through here, and now we've sort of got this tightening phase here going on. It's a little VCP, a little triangulation pattern there. So last thing on the chart here, the last few days, starting to see a little bit of volume, those sort of 3 there. So this is definitely one to keep an eye on there. I prefer to see a little bit of a B-wave break here, probably break of 11 there, but definitely one to sort of keep an eye on there, particularly after that bit of, a couple of little pops there. So these are mainly sort of small ones there. First big one on the list there was Neuron Pharmaceuticals there. Again, had probably the classic ABC pullback there. Just started to see this bit of volume come through there, and that's held up in the face of a pretty weak market too. So that's number 10 on the list there. So showing a bit of relative strength there is Neuron. So definitely sort of interesting there to sort of come back in 3 waves. Just a bit of volume down there. So one to sort of keep an eye on there really. FPH is another big one. Again, sort of this sort of healthcare space has been under the pump here, but this is, while the market's been finding new lows, this has just made a higher low here. And we've sort of seen some volume through. We've just sort of punched through, potentially punching through a little bit of a B wave here, starting to maybe break out of this sort of downward trend here. So potential change of character there for Fisher and Paykel Health there. So I've seen a bit of a move in, ResMed has sort of had that big washout, the big bullish engulfing pattern there. My eyesight, what are you doing? But
Zoom's taking up all the speed and bandwidth.
yeah, so it's a big volume at the, obviously this has been a nasty downtrend there, hug the 10, the sort of 10-day moving average all the way down, broke up above the 20, which is a good sign. Maybe come back now, sort of sitting on the 20 here. So yeah, this is just pretty interesting as well. So just a few stocks out of healthcare starting to sort of show, even the sort of CSL, that's hit the bottom of the range, that 242 level, or 245 level, there's a big level sort of historically. So just seeing a little bit of movement in some of the healthcare stocks as well after what has been a bit of a pummeling for them. So they're sort of, in the last week or so, they've showed some strength there versus the market, which is a positive sign there. Reliance RWC is another one that's actually sort of showed a bit of relative strength too, Chris. That was number 21 on the list. 23. And yeah, been some okay volume through there. Typically might just be a little ABC correction there. Could be a first high low setup here. So this is definitely one just to monitor that. Hasn't sort of proven itself just yet, but and it does look pretty constructive to me. Again, showing a bit of relative strength there, which is a good sign, I think. So Frontier Digital, FDV, has actually held on pretty well this last week. It's sort of gone sort of almost on a sideways, sort of hugging there. So that, again, that's held up pretty well in a pretty weak market. Frontier is sort of like your REA sort of car sales in sort of not third world, but basically some developing sort of nations there. So I think they got Brazilian operations, and yeah, so this is sort of interesting sort of stock. It's been sort of touted by a few fund managers as a bit of a growth stock here, but it hasn't really. Obviously that small to mid sort of size small caps are really been underperformed here. So it's definitely one of the
with the research that you've got for the 40s and 70s at high inflation. So
yeah, so it's just not a great sector to be in here, but it is interesting that one is sort of showing a bit of strength there at the moment there. 29 Metals was on the list as well. That sort of scrapes in, so that's sort of held on here to copper play. And it's sort of largely gone sort of sideways here, so it might be a bit of a base build there. The only issue there is you've got a lot of overhead supply there, so it's, the stock's been trending down for quite a while, so it's just got a bit of overhead there. And I think Brickworks was on the list as well. So this is interesting for other reasons, which we'll talk about in the weekly stocks there. There's a little stock in there which sort of caught my eye, which has some link to the Brickworks.
So if we might be coming towards the end of the many left in the quarterly momentum.
Yeah, that is it. Yeah, so just starting to see some bigger stocks in the list. There's still sort of smaller ones there, some interesting smaller ones. And seeing a few healthcare stocks in there. We've seen the banks the last few days sort of hold up there. They probably don't make it in there just because that percentage is probably not that big. But I think you sort of showed me that I think healthcare and hospital supplies were, even bio might have been in the top few groups there.
I remember, was it biotechnology, drug manufacturing?
Bio drugs, I think hospital supplies, healthcare, we're pretty well placed there. Consumer staples was pretty buoyant there. Banks were pretty buoyant. So those are the ones on the list there. So which is which makes sense, because we are sort of, at a bit of a turn point there. They're often ones that sort of do lead us sort of out here. So, so just got to be careful here, watching closely there for them for a bit of support here, because, if we do find a low here sort of soon, which is, if you look at the seasonal bias there, I think something like around, I was reading Jeffrey Hirsch, which is he's almanac trader basically. I think he was suggesting that typically if you have early October weakness, a lot of lows are found around day 7, which is around the 10th of October, if you want to get it down to a fine, So there's a lot of seasonality around that. So, so sometimes some years have around the 20th, 22nd of October. So a lot of the big lows sort of come in there, but the normal sort of seasonal low is actually early October, usually around the 7th trading day, which is around that sort of, usually around the 10th. So just interesting there. We sort of, we see the market sort of tightening up a little bit there. I think you the S&P 500 there the last few days has sort of been trading here. So, it might even be around the 200-day moving average. I think we're just sitting above here, the overall market. So, pretty interesting there. And even the XJO has obviously come back to a big level on that chart there, that 6,900 zone, which we've got a few touches there. So again, we're sort of just, in a range-bound market, we just some of those stocks, they just go to a new low and then they reverse. And we get a little false break, and then that's the point we often turn here. So just interesting here that we hit that really cycle window. We've hit a lot of technical zones as well, some big ones. So, that's why really got to be paying attention here right now. This could be the week ahead could be the most critical week for this financial year. So got to be on the ball right now.
Well, that's a good point to note. So historically, from the annual cycles, the week ahead is the week to really focus on. And as you said, studying last year, you got the majority, or 170% of your returns from, what was it? How many weeks in the year?
12 out of the 52, which is only 23%. So it's great. I mean, that's trading. And if you know those stats, then that's okay. It actually made me feel better that I haven't really made much money in the last 3 months. Because I know that really the market, it's gone down for the last, obviously, couple of months. It's gone sort of sideways the previous month before that. So there hasn't really been any big moves here, really. It's been about a few trades there, made some good money, but then been plenty more where I've just been chopped up. So for the risk, the key there is just to, tight. If you're facing a lot of losers there, then, you got to reduce your bet size. So I sort of, I capped my bet size at sort of 10% for a while. So just wasn't sort of gearing up too hard. And then just taking lots of paper cuts. I mean, it's frustrating. It's, does your head in a bit sometimes, but capital preservation is it's paramount. And, if you listen to many trading podcasts as me, every trader that's successful, risk management, capital preservation, risk management, stops in place. It's just, that's the number one element there. So
capital's your lifeblood of trading, and without your lifeblood, you capital, you can't trade.
Yeah, what was the Larry quote last week? Sort of if you don't have any chips, you can't bet. So but yeah, the looking through the weekly list, some interesting stocks here. So SDK number 3 on the list. I thought this was pretty interesting. So pretty strong volume through here. Had a little bit of a tight VCP here. This is probably the only giveaway here. Some good volume through there. Tightened up here and then started to move through. Sort of a little bit of volume through here early. But then, we definitely punched through there. So it would have been hard to trade that little gap there. But what you did see was it just congested and didn't pull back. So after a sort of trigger like that, you think, maybe we might give some sort of selling back here. But all it did was tighten up and then hold tight, and then it's pushed on here. So pretty good volume here so far. So this is definitely one to keep an eye on there. Wait for a little consolidation again. That's been pretty healthy volume so far. So very constructive. Just going to cover some of these uranium stocks quickly there, Chris. what I'm seeing across the board there is distribution there. So seeing some pretty heavy volume into the highs, seeing some distribution on the way down here. Now you sort of got to watch how these sort of bounces occur here, whether you see any volume sort of comes out of the bounces there. You saw Bannerman there. Bannerman there, look at that volume there from the into the highs there. So you saw some big volume into this high here, another volume here, and you saw 1, 2, 3 good days down here. So I saw some pretty heavy selling into this sort of high there. So that's a little bit of a concern then. I think BOE as well. This one's probably not as obvious there. It's held up reasonably well. It's probably looking slightly better, but there is still a bit more sort of selling going on. I think EL8 is the other one as well. And wow, look at that. That's popped into the high there, Chris. Huh? And then what have we just seen here? Just big selling here. So that's the side distribution as well. So got to be, you're long uranium here. Well done. But right now you just got to watch. You got to manage. This is when you're going to be switched on. So like you switch on for the market to get long here. If you're long uranium stocks here, this is when you're going to be most switched on here, because these things are, for me, started to show first signs of distribution. So just got to manage it pretty closely. They can go higher, even though you start getting that early distribution, but it's a warning sign there that that's some of the smart money's sort of starting to take some profits here. You're sort of seeing that from quite a few of the sort of stocks there. So just be cautious with those ones. VMN. I thought this was pretty constructive there, Chris, because it had the pop, had a consolidation, and had another pop, and then since then we've sort of the price has just consolidated here, and this has been very light selling here. Yeah, had one little up day there. Didn't have the usual volume like the last two moves there, but when you look at how light the selling is in there, that's probably the bigger volume day is the first day up. So this still looks pretty constructive, VMM. So it might look a bit.
Gil Morales and Chris Karcher, they'd probably call that big day a pocket pivot, breaking through the 10-day moving average and the highest volume in the last 10.
It's probably a little bit of a little flag up here as well, little pennant flag, little bit of a breakout of that little flag there. So still looks sort of constructive there. SPR, Spartan Resources. Wow, look at this one here, Chris. This is been on this for a few weeks here now. I think I mentioned it about 2 or 3 weeks in a row, but it just hasn't sort of showed too much distribution so far. Maybe through this little pause in there, we didn't see too much there. Well, the only days there with a pop up here, light again, then pop up again here. So people are still buying this thing. No one's sort of selling it here yet. We had the 1 day, that 1 day selling is okay, but then you just got to watch for any sort of follow through there. So maybe a little bit bigger, but still not heavy here. So it's just still hanging on here, still showing a bit of strength there. So
just before you change on that one, the importance of that. So the green line, what's that? 20-day moving average. Is that sort of conforming to that? So what would you be using for a stop at the moment if you're running long?
100%. No, you just exactly. So you got to look at how that sort of stock has sort of run there. I was trying to think which Bannerman there. Maybe it was yellow. One of these sort of stocks says hug the.
Well, they both touched it only a couple of times. The 20.
Yeah, it might be BOE. Yeah. So maybe BOE. See out BOE. This is pretty strong here. This is one's probably even this one here is not sort of showing the same selling as the other stocks there. What it has done there is hug the 10. So this is Kalamagi, where basically he'd be, every time it pulled back to the 10, he might be out into the stronger stocks there. So that's his kind of how he sort of operates there. But that's now broken below the 20 there. So that's probably not so good, because that's really been hugging the 10 all the way up here. And the stronger stocks, they continue to hug there. So that's not so good there. So that
alarm bell
with SPR there, that's sort of hugged the 20 here. So each stock's got, the stronger stocks, when they get really vertical, they hug the 10. But a normal momentum will be probably the 20. So you can see there that this is just sort of bounced off the 20 the whole way through here, so that should be where you're, a close below the 20 will be very negative, and, most smart traders there will be out if it breaks there based on that price action there. Number 11 on the list, FBR. So this is the old fast brick, which is FBR Limited there. So this one here, I thought it was actually Sol Patts and stuff that you might have taken a stake in this, but it's actually Brickworks holds 18% stake in FBR. So FBR is been around for a while here. Probably came on the scene a little bit too early in terms of
Robotic?
AI. Yeah, in terms of robotics, in terms of AI sort of stuff here. But this one, it has raised a bit of money, so there's a few more shares around. But definitely want to sort of keep an eye on here. I sort of think this is just the fact that Brickworks, Sol Patts got involved in this sort of, in the last 12 months there, they obviously see some scope here. So,
well, I love this company just from the videos. There's more else. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
But, if we look at what's happening in Canberra, I'm talking about the number of dwellings, and we want to have another 5 years of breaking records of the amount of dwellings made in the country, they probably want to lay some bricks pretty quickly, or fast bricks. So, I don't know, it's just a very macro aspect to look at deploying capital.
Yeah, it's supposed to keep it like, because I looked at the weekly there, it's had that sort of first run there, some okay volume there, and then it's come all the way back here. So, made a high low, had another run, some okay volume as well, and then eased it all the way back here. And they're just starting to go again. So this is sort of so far a bit base building. So we're sort of setting a few high lows in here. So view this as being sort of a bit constructive. So that's how a lot of the VCPs sort of set up, the bigger ones that can take a while. I think I saw one there recently, which I had on my list there. Might have been NFL. Oh yeah. So I sort of pulled back here, volume on the push, run up again, tighten up here. So the whole thing is tightened up again, and now we've sort of had a bit of a push out of this. So this is actually broken above that swing high there. So that's just a sort of classic setup there. You can see the volume, and then push through. So that SBR has got the early makings, Yeah, the issue there is, look, it's still probably a lot of overhead supply, a lot of shares on issue, but got to respect the Sol Patts team there. They, been around for a long time. They're good investors, those guys. So Brickworks is on the register there. I know you got a lot to sort of win from being on there, but yeah, this is one to keep an eye on there. I just think that's a really interesting sort of stock there.
Well, that's a good one from a thematic perspective. These are things that you and I have studied over the last, probably decades ourselves, but looking back in the last century. When you get a leading company in a breakout, it's a confluence of a few events. But if it's a company that's got a foot or a couple of irons in the fires, but specifically two leading thematics, is in artificial intelligence and construction, it's the mesh of those two that can become leaders like Apple, Amazon, and that kind of thing. Right place, right time, and right management, obviously.
Yeah.
It's that confluence of marketing.
Yeah. Look, it's definitely want to give an eye. Look, there might be, I remember I said it coming years ago, I thought it was pretty exciting here, but all it's done is sort of go down, sort of since then, and I think it's raised more capital, and, it's been expensive there, but definitely got an IP there, which is potentially could change the landscape for construction, and sort of it could be potential game changer sort of style stock there. So so it's just definitely one to sort of keep an eye on that. LPI was another one on the list there, which I thought looked pretty interesting there. So that's Lithium Power International. It's had a bit of a pop here on the volume there, has gone above the previous sort of swing high. So that's one thing I do like, and then sort of pull back here. Bit thin there, but I thought that looked okay. BIQ. Thought this is pretty interesting there, just because sort of like it's had a bit of a pop up here. Potential little, might be a sort of potential cup and handle set up there. Might need a bit more time here, but I looked at the weekly and sort of, that's impulsive up, and this is a big corrective decline here. So this is now sort of starting to pop out of this, I just love to see these sort of big sideways consolidations, and then we can come out of that. So going above one high here, go above two highs here, that's pretty constructive. There's definitely one to keep an eye on there. That BIQ there. So involved in sort of diagnostic sort of testing there around sort of a lot of kidney disease, things like that. So seen there with weird and bite RHY there, that had a big move a few years ago. So it's definitely a sector which can move. So thought that was pretty interesting. PIQ. STP, it's a bit of a surprise here, the old bamboo undies. But look at that volume there, Chris. Look at that.
That's good, solid volume, and
I know.
not windy, but low volume.
Yeah, so why is the volume so high for a bloody bamboo undie, man? So but this is why sometimes you can get in the way here of making money. But this is sort of been building here on the weekly as well. So I don't know. This is interesting to me. So yeah, it's been pretty tight. There's just been not too much selling going on. You're on the pullback here as well. It's been pretty light. So maybe it sort of congests back here, but just that volume, you're sort of telling me to keep an eye on that. Maybe one to watch there. I think forward DS was the one that this has come back. It obviously had that pop originally, come back to 12 cents and then popped again, gone back up to the range again. So this is kind of the bottom of our range here, around 12 cents here. So this is just a level to keep an eye on here. Oftentimes they will, little ABC, they'll square off, and that's a point where they can go again. You want to see a bit of strength there first, but just interesting what level we're at there at the moment. I thought this looks pretty interesting too, actually. SXG, Southern Cross Gold, bit of a cup and handle potentially in here, Chris, as well. Sort of nice little, stay pretty tight here. And what we've got here now is a little VCP, really tight little triangulation sort of setting up there. So that looks pretty interesting as well. So
almost a high and tight flag too. Maybe a bit slow at the start.
Yeah, you just love to see these things when they sort of go up and retest the high, then they pull back and they don't come back much. The whole price action just tightens up underneath the old high there. That's just the setup, So volumes are light here. I need to do a bit more work on this one, but I thought that one looked pretty interesting to me.
Well, we know from the studies that coming from a low of 40 cents, getting over 80 cents, it's more than 100% rise. It consolidated within 70 cents and 85 cents. So that's within the top third of the range. We know that if the gold thematic is running strong, if that's what's pushing the share price.
Well, it's not, because gold price has been falling here. The price has been holding on here. So I've been along some Ramelius, RMS, and gold's been getting coined. This thing's going up, but actually through that gold got hammered through here. This thing just held tight. I wanted to sell this. Everything told me to sell it because everything else, like Evolution, broke down. I think Resolute basically gone sideways, so it's held tight there. But every other gold stock has gone down, except for maybe RMS and RSG. This thing just sort of sat on top here, and then it's punched through here again. So I don't know, it's gone on near high here today. So I don't know, it's just amazing here. But if the thematic was not trading well, Chris, the stock is holding on the face of all that sort of selling there. So that's interesting for RMS there. As that's why I think the FXG is really interesting as well, is that this has held up so well here, tight price action in the face of pretty negative, action in gold here. So
that might be the time to drill down on geographies and find some sort of common theme between those leading gold shares and what's driving them. And if there is a common theme, then the probability of Southern Cross putting on another 40 cents increases dramatically if there's a good something and the other sister companies aren't running. But we'll leave that research for the viewers to watch, and you can keep that one close to your chest when you should go long.
Yeah, that's hard, but because obviously, if the sector starts to break down, then you think, oh, I shouldn't be in here. But if your stock's like really holding tight, and actually holding up pretty well, like I wanted to sell it, 4 or 5 days in a row because I saw the rest of the sector sort of deteriorating away. But what I kept seeing that RMS, it kept basically finishing strong. So any sort of time it was down, it just kept finishing off the lows. It just kept bouncing the whole time. And even on some of the down days, it was actually for gold, it was actually going up here. So I thought, well, this thing's just showing strength there. Yeah. And
that's probably a good chart for you to talk about as the market's falling and making new lows. This one's making new highs. So is that the kind of foundation you're looking for a new market leader?
Yeah, 100%. So we want to see which stocks are showing, what stocks have got a bit of backbone here under this sort of selling here. So so they're often the ones that sort of lead out here. So this, you can see here if you're looking through the gold stocks here, what stocks are holding up here. So obviously Ramelius has held up. RSG I think has held up pretty well as well. It hasn't sort of gone sideways. This is going to get a fairly decent institutional holding as well. So look at that. That's just hold tight while the gold sector's come back as well. So that's pretty interesting as well. Obviously the SXJ looks pretty good. So that's why it's important there to be looking at who's holding up. Because all of a sudden gold pops up here. The sector's going to run, the strongest stocks are going to run the hardest, So last stock on the list there was Gentrack, a bit of a software billing, 482 mil, P of 46 there, but look, obviously hitting a few winning runs here, growing quite nicely. But look at that price action there. It's just remaining firm, Chris. Just probably hard to trade, a bit lightly traded the stock, but it's just pretty robust price action there. Pretty strong trend here. Barely showed any weakness at all so far. So
that's a big rise for 1 year. That's huge.
It is. So so if you're in the right space at the right time here, making the right waves there. So that looks pretty decent there. Actually, probably the only other chart that was number 30 I thought was just interesting to show PME, which PME is a leader, has been a leader there. These leaders always have always tend to surprise on the upside rather than the downside. So, there's that classic congesting tight under the high. That's the David Ryan pattern there. He looks for stocks congesting there, and then bang, it's just popped up here and just kept going. So, got to keep looking for this. Got to keep looking for that. Sort of look for those VCPs. Look for the B wave breaks. Look for that tight congestion sitting under the highs there. So got to be looking for stocks that are showing a bit of strength here at the moment.
Right. Well, that's a great list to work through this week, and it's the much more exciting list than we've seen for quite some time, especially as you say in the context of the market falling to new lows, and these are surfacing themselves as having relative strength, emphasis on relative in comparison to the rest of the market.
Yeah, like even some of the big ones here, like these, like the BHP, there's a pullback there, second pullback, third pullback, fourth pullback. That is tightening up here. So FMG is like the same. Well, that pullback here. The whole thing's just tightening here. So those are the things we're looking for, because and it's amazing. Those stocks have held up pretty well, considering how weak the market has been as well. So they're showing a bit of relative strength there. So, this is the time we switched on here. This is when we can hopefully make some money here. It's been tough going for the first quarter. Maybe the second quarter here can provide us with some better times there. So just got to be switched on here. I think there's some opportunities here. Markets had a pullback. Really important to be ready here for some potential moves.
Well, that's a good setup and a good list to run into the weekend. As you said, you're rolling your sleeves up. You're doing more work at this part of the market cycle, because this could be that 4 weeks where you make half of the year's profits in the week ahead. And
hope so.
Cycle. Yeah, we hope. So, but that's a very good point. A great analysis of the charts. Thank you very much, Gary Glover from Lobus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.
Gary's mentioned setups. There's a whole playlist of different types of setups and research, such as cycles and 40s and 70s inflations that he's talked about. And also his Tuesday breakdown, where he puts forward the trades that he's sending to his clients and the portfolios that he's running. He goes through in detail on Tuesdays. And then on the left is his X or his Twitter handle if you want to follow Gary there.